Did you know that cholesterol has a very important role in hormone health and that not all cholesterol is bad? Hi, I'm Dr. Patricia Mills, holistic medical doctor transforming women's hormone health with natural root cause solutions, and welcome to the Wild Wisdom Show. Today, we're going to be talking about a super important topic, cholesterol, the good, the bad, and why your hormones need it. So let's start off with why cholesterol matters. So cholesterol is a molecule that is essential for many different functions in the body. It is used to make up the membranes of your cells. So kind of like the skin of your cells, cholesterol is an important building block for that. It also is required to make the bile acid that goes into your gallbladder and has multiple functions in your body, including detoxification and absorbing your healthy fats. It also is used to make vitamin D. So those reasons alone should be enough to convince you that cholesterol itself is not bad. And when it comes to cholesterol and hormones, cholesterol is a building block of the hormones estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, DHEA, and cortisol. And we know that if we don't have enough of these hormones, we start getting into problems with hormone imbalance. And research suggests that if we eat a diet that is too low in cholesterol, we actually can run into some serious health problems. However, if we have a cholesterol imbalance, too much of the bad kind, then we're gonna start to experience problems with our health. Now, we're gonna dive into the bad kind. It's known usually as LDL, but I'm gonna do a little deeper dive in it so you can understand the intricacies of the details and also tell you what kind of cholesterol should you be getting from your diet to support the good kind and minimize the bad kind. So the thing with the cholesterol is that too much of the bad kind can lead to increased risk of heart attacks and stroke. And so there are different types of cholesterol, and the one that we're going to focus on and dive deeper as being potentially problematic is called a low density lipoprotein, LDL, the so-called bad cholesterol. Now, LDL has an important function in your body as well. And so, what LDL does is it transports that very important cholesterol to your tissues. So, for example, when you make cholesterol in your liver, so liver production is one of the primary sources of cholesterol in your body, or you absorb it from your diet, that's another smaller source, but still important source of cholesterol in your body. LDL takes that cholesterol and transports it around. So it's like the bus that's carrying the cholesterol in the blood. And it'll transport the cholesterol to where it needs to go, to the skin to make vitamin D when the sun hits your skin. It'll go to the ovaries or the testes to make the estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. It'll go to the adrenal glands so that it can make the cortisol for a healthy stress response. So LDL, again, is not problematic. But if we have too much LDL, it can start to cause like a clog up. Just imagine if you had too many buses on the road. The buses themselves are not bad, but too many of them can start to cause a traffic jam. And that's a similar thing with the buildup of LDL in the arteries. And it can contribute to formation of plaques where the LDL starts to stick together with other things in the plaque, like calcium. And that can increase the risk of heart disease and stroke. But it gets even more interesting. So not all LDL are created equal. Most LDL start off as being healthy LDL, but then there are certain factors, particularly things that cause inflammation in the body, that will damage the LDL, cause it to become what's called oxidized. So any inflammation in the body could cause the LDL that's there to become oxidized. And that oxidized LDL is a particularly harmful kind of cholesterol. It typically gets small and dense and hard, as opposed to larger, bigger, and more fluffy. And so it can lead to an increased risk of that heart attack and stroke risk. So it's the oxidized LDL that we are particularly worried about. And so what causes an increased risk of oxidized LDL? Essentially lifestyle choices and environmental factors that cause inflammation in the body. So high cholesterol does not necessarily come from the cholesterol in your diet. It can be caused by things that trigger your liver to make too much cholesterol and or damage the existing cholesterol so that it becomes oxidized. and more likely to cause damage. So, what are some key factors that will cause this cascade of reactions in the body? Essentially, a specific problem with your diet, which we will cover, lack of movement, so not enough exercise, smoking has been shown to do this, too much alcohol has been linked to this, inflammation and stress. So, if you're living a very high stress lifestyle, that alone can cause an increase in the bad kind of cholesterol. And genetics and metabolism can contribute as well, but they seem to be less important unless you have a family history of hypercholesterolemia, so familial hypercholesterolemia. But whether you have this condition or not, these factors are still important because you can decrease your risk with enough movement, with quitting smoking, reducing alcohol intake, addressing inflammatory triggers, decreasing stress, and the diet can help, but not in the way that you think. So again, research shows that dietary cholesterol in your diet doesn't itself cause too high cholesterol necessarily. It's more about things in your diet that trigger inflammation in your body that then cause your body to make too much cholesterol in response to that inflammation. So I've done a deeper dive on this in a separate episode, which I will link in the notes below. So you might have to click on where it says more to expand the caption and see that link and click on it to learn more about the diet. But in a nutshell, too much refined carbohydrates, so that's anything from sugar to flour, so too much of those foods, plus too much saturated fat, which we'll get into, and too much ultra-processed foods, those cause inflammation in the body, which can then lead to higher cholesterol levels. And this is research that has been gathered from over hundreds, 107,000 studies, if I recall correctly, and been synthesized into dietary guidelines by the US. And they themselves, this dietary guideline committee, said that it's not a focus of reducing cholesterol in the diet, but these other factors like too much refined carbohydrates, saturated fats, and ultra processed foods. So good sources of cholesterol, because again, we need cholesterol in the body to make our hormones, make our cell membranes, make our vitamin D, are sources of cholesterol that are low in refined carbohydrates and low in saturated fats. So those are eggs. Eggs are actually an excellent source of cholesterol, and research has proven that eating eggs does not cause high cholesterol so long as you're not eating too much of those refined carbohydrates, saturated fats, and ultra-processed foods. Fish and shellfish like shrimp and lobster are also great sources of cholesterol. Now, if you're vegetarian or vegan, the kind of cholesterol that our body can use directly as the cholesterol to make vitamin and those things and the hormones doesn't come from plant foods. But again, your body can make its own cholesterol, and you just have to make sure that whatever you're eating isn't causing it to make too much cholesterol. So that's very important. Now, sources of cholesterol that also have high saturated fats that we have to be a little bit more cautious with are things like full fat dairy, such as yogurt and butter, and red meat more so than white meat, such as turkey and chicken, so poultry. Right. And so when we minimize the intake of those foods, and notice that I said minimize, I did not say eliminate, because full fat dairy products, red meat, poultry, these all have nutrients that can be very helpful for health should you be, for example, omnivorous or able to eat dairy products. But the key thing is you don't want to overdo it. You want to find the right balance for your body. And typically it's keeping those foods to a lower amount, eating more of the fishes and, getting your eggs in if you can, again, if you don't have an allergy or intolerance to those foods. And then watching that video or listening to the video that I have linked below to understand that there are foods that you can add into your diet so that it balances out these saturated fats so that you can eat your high fat dairies and your red meats and your white meats, so long as you add in the foods that help keep that cholesterol production low by reducing inflammation. Now, sources of cholesterol that are high in refined carbohydrates include desserts such as ice cream, so high fat dairy plus the sugar, That's very problematic, actually. So, this is the problem with these foods, and these should be kept to an absolute minimum and really be considered as the occasional treat. Processed meats also, it's not necessarily the processing, but it's the addition of the sugars. When I go to a deli counter and I ask for the ingredient list of these processed meats, they always include sugar unless they are made by, for example, a local farmer who doesn't add these things in, or a company that's very aware of the fact that adding sugar to saturated fats is like a cholesterol increasing bomb. So you don't want to do that. Deep fried foods that have that crusty outer layer also, because it's usually like a carbohydrate outer layer. So on the potatoes or the chicken wings, if it's got that little crust and it's been deep fried, then that's extremely problematic, as well as certain pizzas and hamburgers. Again, not so much because those foods are bad per se, but when you combine the refined flours with the saturated fats, you're increasing your risk of your body making more cholesterol. So keeping those foods to a minimum is very, very important. And in fact, the same US dietary food guidelines, when they investigated, they discovered that the highest sources of foods that are causing high cholesterol actually are coming from our desserts, from the pizzas and burgers and ultra processed foods. So simply cutting those out will allow you then to focus on eating those healthy whole foods, including some butter and dairy and red meat and poultry, if that's what you're doing, in order to maintain a balanced diet with variety and nutritional density. Now, what's important to understand is that this is just one piece of the puzzle when it comes to high cholesterol. I highly recommend that you check out the caption below, the notes below, and click on the link for my high cholesterol playlist. In it, I go deeper into the root causes and natural solutions, such as the best exercises, the best nutrition, and even supplements should you want to either prevent yourself from getting high cholesterol or reverse the high cholesterol, either with or without the use of medications. Even if you're on a medication for high cholesterol, adding in these strategies can either help you reduce the dose of your medication or get off of it. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to my YouTube channel at dr.patriciamills. That's the best way to support the show. If you enjoyed this episode, please save it and share it. Sharing is caring, and you never know when someone's going to benefit from this wild wisdom. Thank you so much for joining me today. I look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great rest of your day, evening, or night. Bye.